Imagine a civilization so powerful, so vast, so ahead of its time, that when its enemies finally defeated it, they were so overwhelmed by its beauty, they wept, not out of joy, out of shame. This is the story of a land that has been called many names: Mesopotamia's eastern neighbor, Alexander's greatest conquest, the Islamic world's beating heart. But through every century, every empire, every invasion, it has always had one name that echoes through history like thunder. This is the story of Iran, the eternal empire. To understand Iran, you have to start not with kings or armies, but with geography. Sit back and picture this: a vast plateau stretching nearly 2.5 million square kilometers, surrounded on almost every side by natural fortresses, the Zagros Mountains to the west, the Elborz Range to the north, and the towering Hindu Kush to the northeast. This land was not easy to reach, and for the people who lived here, that was exactly the point. As far back as 7000 BCE, that's 9,000 years ago, people were already farming the fertile valleys of what is now western Iran. They built villages, they painted pottery, they domesticated animals. They had culture before most of the world had even settled down. Then, around 3200 BCE, something remarkable happened nearby. In the lowlands to the west, in a region called Elam, centered around the city of Susa, one of the world's earliest civilizations began to write. Not stories, not poetry, but records, trade, taxes, bureaucracy. These weren't barbarians, these were administrators. For the next 2,000 years, the peoples of this plateau, Elamites, Medes, early Iranian tribes, traded, fought, and evolved. Empires rose and fell around them. The Assyrians swept through like a storm. The Babylonians dominated the region. Kingdoms came and went like seasons. But deep in the mountains, something was stirring. A people who called themselves the Aryans, meaning the noble ones, had migrated from the Central Asian steppes and settled across this plateau. They split into many tribes. Those tribes would change the world forever: the Medes and the Persians. The Medes built the first great Iranian kingdom, the Median Empire, around 678 BCE. They destroyed the mighty Assyrian Empire, sacked the city of Nineveh in 612 BCE, and became a regional superpower almost overnight. But the Medes had no idea what was coming, because rising quietly in the south, in a region called Pars or Persis, a young king from the Achaemenid clan was watching, waiting, and planning. His name was Cyrus. In 559 BCE, Cyrus II became king of a small, relatively obscure Persian tribe called the Pasargadae. His kingdom was modest, his resources were limited, and he was technically a vassal, a subordinate to the Median Empire in the north. Most kings in his position would have been content to rule quietly and survive. Cyrus was not most kings. What made Cyrus extraordinary wasn't just military genius, though he had that in abundance. It was something rarer, something almost unheard of in the ancient world. He understood people. In 550 BCE, Cyrus launched a rebellion against the Median king Astyages, his own grandfather, according to some ancient sources. The Median army marched to crush him. But Cyrus had done something brilliant. He had already spoken to Median generals in secret, promised them dignity,
promised them a place in his new order. When the armies met, the Medes didn't fight, they defected. Just like that, without a bloodbath, Cyrus had absorbed the most powerful empire in the region. He didn't massacre the Median leadership, he didn't burn their cities. He gave Astyages a comfortable exile and integrated the Medes into his new empire as partners, not slaves. People noticed. Word spread. This Persian king was different. Over the next decade, Cyrus moved with breathtaking speed. In 547 BCE, he turned west and defeated Croesus of Lydia, a king so fabulously wealthy that we still use his name in the phrase "rich as Croesus," capturing the western coast of modern-day Turkey. Then he turned east. He subdued the ancient civilizations of Bactria and Sogdia, modern-day Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Then he looked south, toward the oldest city in the world, Babylon. Babylon in 539 BCE was not just a city, it was the center of the civilized world. Its walls were said to be so thick that a 4-horse chariot could turn around on top of them. It had been the dominant power of the region for centuries. Its king, Nabonidus, was considered untouchable. Cyrus walked in almost without a fight. The Babylonian people, who had grown tired of their own king's religious repression, welcomed Cyrus as a liberator. Ancient cuneiform tablets record their cheers. What happened next is why historians still talk about Cyrus with a kind of reverence that they reserve for very few rulers in all of human history. After taking Babylon, Cyrus issued a proclamation. It was inscribed on a small clay cylinder, just 23 centimeters long, in the Akkadian language. That cylinder survived for 2,500 years. It was discovered in the ruins of Babylon in 1879 and now sits in the British Museum. Its contents made scholars do it double-take. Cyrus declared that he would not terrorize the people, that he will allow enslaved peoples to return to their homelands, that he would restore temples that previous conquerors had looted, that he would respect the local religions and customs of every people under his rule. This was not normal. This was radical. This was almost unthinkable in 539 BCE. The Jewish people, who had been in Babylonian captivity since 597 BCE, nearly 60 years, were freed. Cyrus personally authorized and funded their return to Jerusalem. The Hebrew Bible calls him the Lord's Anointed. Isaiah 45 verse 1 names him directly, one of only 2 non-Jewish figures in the Torah to be given that title. Some scholars debate whether the Cyrus Cylinder was a formal declaration of rights in the modern legal sense. What is not in debate is that it represented a philosophy of governance that was genuinely unprecedented. Rule through inclusion, not terror. By the time Cyrus died in battle in 530 BCE, fighting the Massageti people near the Caspian Sea, his empire stretched from the Aegean coast of Turkey to the borders of India. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen, and he had built it in less than 30 years. His tomb still stands today in Pasargadae, Iran, a simple stone structure on a stepped platform. No gold, no grandeur, just stone. Carved above the entrance, according to ancient Greek sources, were these words: "Even in death, he was trying to tell you something." If Cyrus built the empire, Darius I perfected it. Coming to power in 522 BCE, after a brief period of political chaos following Cyrus's son Cambyses, Darius faced a nearly impossible task: holding together a collection of dozens of different peoples, languages, religions, and cultures, all under one crown. He did it with the same tool that holds all great civilizations together: systems. Darius divided the empire into 20 administrative provinces called satrapies, each governed by a regional governor called a satrap. But critically, he placed royal inspectors, called the king's eyes and ears, in every province to check that governors weren't abusing their power. It was the ancient world's version of an anti-corruption watchdog. He built roads. The Royal Road, stretching 2,700 kilometers from Sardis in modern Turkey to Susa in Iran, allowed royal messengers to travel its entire length in just 7 days. For a world that moved at the speed of a horse, this was extraordinary. The Persian postal relay system was so efficient, the Greek historian Herodotus marveled at it, and it likely inspired the later concept of courier services across the ancient world. He standardized weights and measures and coinage. He built canals. He funded the construction of Persepolis, one of the most magnificent cities ever created, as the ceremonial capital of his empire. And then he made a mistake. He looked west, to Greece. In 490 BCE, the Greek cities along the coast of modern Turkey, under Persian control, rebelled in what historians call the Ionian Revolt. Athens sent ships to help the rebels. The Persians crushed the rebellion, but Darius did not forget Athens' role. His son would later claim that Darius had a servant whose only job was to whisper to him 3 times every evening before dinner, "Master, remember the Athenians." In 490 BCE, Darius sent an army across the Aegean Sea to punish Athens. At a coastal plain called Marathon, roughly 26 miles north of Athens, an outnumbered Greek force, primarily Athenian, met the Persian army in open battle. The Greeks won. It was a stunning upset. The legend of a Greek runner named Pheidioppides, who supposedly ran the 26 miles to Athens to announce victory, then collapsed and died, became the inspiration for the modern marathon race. Darius planned a second, larger invasion, but he died in 486 BCE before it could happen. The task passed to his son, Xerxes. What Xerxes assembled in 480 BCE was, by ancient standards, an incomprehensible force. The Greek historian Herodotus, admittedly prone to exaggeration, claimed an army of 2.6 million. Modern historians estimate a more realistic figure of between 100,000 and 300,000 soldiers. But even at the conservative estimate, it was the largest military force the ancient world had ever seen marching into Europe. Xerxes was not coming to negotiate. He was coming to erase. He bridged the Hellespont, the narrow strait between Asia and Europe, by lashing hundreds of ships together side by side and laying planks across them. When a storm destroyed the first bridge, Xerxes reportedly had the sea flogged 300 lashes as punishment for defying him. No one was entirely sure if he was serious. They flogged it anyway. His army swept through northern Greece, city after city surrendered. Then they hit a narrow mountain pass, Thermopylae. A Spartan king named Leonidas stood there with approximately 7,000 Greeks, including his 300 royal bodyguards. They held the pass for 3 days against the full weight of the Persian army. 3 days. They were ultimately betrayed by a local Greek traitor who showed the Persians a mountain path around the pass. Surrounded on both sides, Leonidas dismissed most of the allied Greek forces. He and his 300 Spartans, along with roughly 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans, who also chose to stay, fought to the last man. Xerxes marched on Athens. He burned it. But then something happened that no one expected. At the Battle of Salamis in September 480 BCE, the Athenian general Themistocles lured the Persian fleet into a narrow channel where their numerical advantage was worthless. In the chaos of that confined space, the Greek triremes, faster and more maneuverable, destroyed over 200 Persian ships. Xerxes watched from a golden throne on a hilltop. He watched his empire's navy be dismantled in a single afternoon. He never recovered from it. The Persian land forces suffered a final decisive defeat at the Battle of Plataea in 439 BCE. Xerxes retreated back to Persia. He would spend the rest of his reign dealing with court conspiracies and personal tragedies. He was assassinated in his own bedroom in 465 BCE. The dream of conquering Greece died with him. But the Achaemenid Empire itself, despite the Greek setback, survived for another 130 years. Until the day a 22-year-old Macedonian king crossed into Asia with fire in his eyes and revenge in his heart. In 334 BCE, Alexander of Macedon, already king at 20, already a student of Aristotle, already burning with ambition that no map could contain, crossed the Hellespont into Persian territory. He had approximately 40,000 soldiers. He was about to attack the largest empire in the world. The Persian king he faced was Darius III, a capable man, but one who had the misfortune of facing the greatest military mind of antiquity. At the Battle of Issus in 333 BCE, Alexander personally led a cavalry charge through a gap in the Persian line, straight toward Darius himself. Darius fled the battlefield in his chariot, abandoning his mother, wife, and children. His family was captured, and Alexander, true to a kind of chivalry unusual for the age, treated them with honor and respect. He visited Darius's mother personally. He called her mother. She reportedly wept at this.
Alexander swept south through modern-day Lebanon, Israel, and Egypt, where he was welcomed as a pharaoh and founded the city of Alexandria. Then he turned back east. At the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE, in what is now northern Iraq, Darius assembled a new, even larger army. He had war elephants. He had scythe-wheeled chariots. He had a flat plain to maximize his numerical advantage. Alexander won anyway. Darius fled again. He was laser murdered by one of his own nobles, Bessus, who hoped to use the king's death as a bargaining chip with Alexander. Alexander was reportedly furious. He gave Darius a royal burial. He personally covered the body with his own cloak. Even in victory, Alexander was drawn to the greatness of what he had defeated. And then came the moment that historians still debate. Persepolis, the jewel of the Achaemenid world, the most beautiful city in Asia, built over generations by Darius and Xerxes, was burned. Whether it was a calculated act of revenge for the burning of Athens in 480 BCE, or a drunken night of destruction, ancient accounts disagree. What is not disputed is that in a single night, a city of breathtaking architecture, priceless art, and irreplaceable royal libraries was reduced to ash and rubble.
Alexander, by some accounts, wept as he watched it burn. He continued east. He crossed the Hindu Kush. He reached the banks of the Beas River in what is now Punjab, Pakistan. Only then did his exhausted, homesick army refuse to go further. He turned back. He reached Babylon. In June 323 BCE, at the age of just 32, Alexander the Great died, likely of fever, possibly poisoning. His cause of death remains debated to this day. His empire was immediately torn apart by his generals. But something he had done, perhaps without fully intending it, would shape Persia for centuries. He had fused Greek and Iranian culture together. Language, philosophy, art, architecture, Greek and Iranian threads woven into something entirely new, a culture historians call Hellenistic. The Seleucid Empire, founded by Alexander's general Seleucus, ruled Persia after his death, but it was never quite Persian and never quite Greek. And the Persian soul, stubborn, ancient, rooted in something that no conqueror had ever managed to fully extinguish, was already preparing its next act. The Parthians are perhaps history's most underrated empire. In 247 BCE, a nomadic Iranian people from the steppes east of the Caspian Sea, the Parni, began pushing into the eastern territories of the weakening Seleucid Empire. Under their king Xerxes, they carved out a kingdom, and then, slowly, methodically, over the next century, they took everything back. By 141 BCE, the Parthian king Mithridates I had recaptured Mesopotamia, Persia, and Media. The Seleucids were pushed back to the coast of Syria. The Parthians were something the ancient world had rarely encountered, an empire that fought almost exclusively on horseback with devastating effect. Their signature weapon was the Parthian shot, cavalry archers who could fire arrows accurately while riding at full gallop and apparently retreating. The phrase parting shot, still used in English today, is believed by some historians to derive from this Parthian tactic. They were Rome's greatest nightmare.
In 53 BCE, at the Battle of Carrhae in modern-day Turkey, a Roman army of 35,000 soldiers, led by the general Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the richest men in Roman history, was annihilated by a Parthian force that simply wouldn't stand still and fight. The Romans chased them across the desert. The Parthians shot them to pieces. Crassus was killed. It was one of Rome's worst military defeats in centuries. For nearly 500 years, the Parthians held Rome at bay across the Euphrates, but they were always a semi-feudal confederation, powerful in war, weaker in administration, and from within Persia itself, a new power was rising. In 224 CE, a Persian nobleman named Ardashir I overthrew the last Parthian king and founded the Sassanid Empire, a dynasty that would rule Iran for over 4 centuries. If the Parthians were the empire that recovered Persia's body, the Sassanids recovered its soul. The Sassanids were consciously, aggressively, deliberately Persian. They revived the old Achaemenid traditions. They made Zoroastrianism, the ancient Iranian religion founded by the prophet Zarathustra, the official state religion. They built magnificent cities, patronized art, philosophy, and medicine, and created a culture of refinement and complexity. And they fought Rome constantly. But unlike the Parthians, the Sassanids didn't just defend, they attacked. In 260 CE, the Sassanid king Shapur I achieved something no foreign power had done in Roman history. He captured a living Roman emperor. The Emperor Valerian,
who had personally led a Roman army to the east, was defeated and taken prisoner at the Battle of Edessa. Shapur reportedly used Valerian as a human footstool when mounting his horse. He had this scene carved into a cliff face at Nakhshe Rastam, near Persepolis. It is still there today. For the next 3 centuries, the Sassanid and Roman, later Byzantine empires were locked in an endless cycle of war. Cities were besieged, burned, and rebuilt. Borders shifted back and forth across Mesopotamia like tides. They were equals. Neither could destroy the other. And that exhausting centuries-long stalemate would prove to be both empires' undoing. Because while Rome and Persia were bleeding each other dry, from the deserts of Arabia, something new was coming. Something that would change the world more profoundly than anything that had come before. In 632 CE, the Prophet Muhammad died in Medina. Within a decade, his successors, the caliphs, had united the fractured tribes of Arabia and turned them into one of the most effective military forces in history. By 633 CE, Arab armies were pressing against the weakened edges of the Sassanid Empire. The final Sassanid king, Yazdegerd III, tried to hold them back. He failed. At the Battle of Al-Qadsiya in 636 CE and the Battle of Nahavand in 642 CE, the Sassanid military, one of the most formidable fighting forces in the ancient world, was broken. By 651 CE, the Sassanid Empire was gone.
Now here is where the story gets truly extraordinary. Every empire that had ever conquered Persia, the Greeks, the Parthians, the Macedonians, had eventually been absorbed by Persian culture. The Greeks became Hellenistic, the Parthians became Persian rulers. Persia had always outlasted its conquerors. But Islam was different, because Islam didn't just come as an army, it came as an idea. And the Persians, a people who had always prized philosophy, art, administration, and deep thought, embraced it. Not without grief, not without resistance in some quarters, but genuinely, intellectually, profoundly embraced it. Persian scholars translated Aristotle into Arabic. Persian bureaucrats staffed the Abbasid Caliphate's government. Persian architects built the mosques. Persian poets wrote the spiritual literature. The Persian language survived, Persian culture survived, and Iran became not a defeated province of the Islamic world, but its intellectual capital. Between roughly the 8th and 13th centuries, while Europe was in what historians once called the Dark Ages, the Islamic world, and Iran at its heart, was experiencing one of the greatest flowerings of human knowledge in history. Let me give you some names, because these are not obscure figures. Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, was born near Bukhara in modern Uzbekistan in 980 CE. He wrote the Canon of Medicine, a medical encyclopedia so comprehensive that European universities were still using it as their primary medical textbook in the 1600s, 6 centuries after he wrote it. Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, a Persian scholar working in Baghdad in the early 9th century, wrote the book Al-Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Muqabla, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. We shortened the title. We called the subject algebra. His name gave us the word algorithm. Al-Biruni, born in 973 CE in modern Uzbekistan, calculated the Earth's circumference to within 1% of the correct value using trigonometry and a clever observation from a mountaintop. He described India's geography and sociology with the precision of an anthropologist. He suggested in the 11th century that the Earth might rotate on its own axis.
Omar Khayyam, mathematician, astronomer, and poet, reformed the Persian calendar in 1079 CE. His calendar had an error of only one day every 3,770 years, more accurate than the Gregorian calendar we use today. And then there is Rumi. Jal ad-Din Rumi was born in Balkh in modern Afghanistan and spent much of his life in Konya in modern Turkey. He wrote in Persian. He was a Sufi mystic, and his poetry, verses about love, longing, the divine, the mystery of being alive, has now been translated into every major language on earth. He is, by some measures, the best-selling poet in the United States today. A 13th century Persian mystic, the best-selling poet in 21st century America. Think about what that means, and then ask yourself, what do you actually know about Persia?
Fast forward to 1501 CE. Iran has endured the Mongol invasion of the 13th century, which killed approximately 10 to 15 million people by some historical estimates, one of the deadliest events in human history. It has survived Tamerlane's campaigns. It has been carved up, disputed, and reshaped. And now, from the northwestern region of Azerbaijan, a 14-year-old boy named Ismail I leads an army of Turkic warriors known as the Kizilbash, the Red Heads, named for their distinctive red headwear, south and east across the Iranian plateau. In a single year, he has conquered most of Iran. At 14, Ismail declared Twelver Shia Islam the state religion of Iran, a defining moment that separated Iran religiously from its Sunni, Ottoman, and Uzbek neighbors, and one that continues to shape the country's identity to this day. But the true glory of the Safavid era came a century later under Shah Abbas I. Shah Abbas ruled from 1588 to 1629 CE. He was Iran's equivalent of Louis XIV of France or Augustus of Rome, a ruler who made his capital a city of monument to civilization itself. He rebuilt Isfahan from the ground up. The Naqsh-e-Jahan Square, image of the world, was completed in 1629. At 512 meters long and 163 meters wide, it remains one of the largest public squares on Earth and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. He reformed the military, creating a professional standing army modeled partly on the Ottoman model. He forged trade and diplomatic relations with European powers, including Elizabethan England. He made Iran once again the cultural and commercial crossroads of the world. The Safavid dynasty lasted until 1736 CE. After Abbas, the empire slowly weakened. Court intrigue, Afghan invasions, and the rising power of the Ottomans all took their toll. But Isfahan remained, the mosques remained, the poetry remained, the language remained. Persia always found a way to remain. The story of modern Iran begins with a revolution that most people in the West have never heard of. In 1905, the people of Iran, fed up with a weak Qajar dynasty that was selling the country's resources and sovereignty to Russia and Britain, rose up in what became the Constitutional Revolution of 1906. They demanded and won a constitution, a parliament, the rule of law. Iran had a functioning parliamentary democracy in 1906, years before many European nations. The 20th century was cruel to those ambitions. Foreign powers, primarily Britain and Russia, and later the United States, intervened repeatedly in Iranian political life, driven largely by one resource that changed everything: oil. In 1908, the first major oil discovery in the Middle East was made in Masjid Suleiman, southwestern Iran.
Within years, Iran was sitting on one of the world's largest oil reserves and being paid a fraction of its value under a British-controlled concession. In 1951, an Iranian prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh, Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1951, nationalized the Iranian oil industry. He argued simply that Iranian oil belonged to Iran. His government was overthrown in 1953 in a coup organized by the CIA and British intelligence, codenamed Operation Ajax, and the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was reinstated to power. The oil went back under foreign control. Mossadegh spent the rest of his life under house arrest. The Shah modernized Iran aggressively through the 1960s and 70s, building universities, expanding women's rights, industrializing the economy. But he also ran one of the most feared secret police forces in the world, the Savak, and silenced political opposition with brutality. The resentment built for decades. In 1979, it exploded. The Iranian Revolution swept the Shah from power in one of the most dramatic political upheavals of the 20th century. Nearly 10% of the entire population of Iran took to the streets at the revolution's peak, by some estimates, the largest protest movement in human history to that point. The Islamic Republic that emerged was and remains deeply complex. It was a revolution that drew support from leftists, nationalists, and Islamists alike, and was ultimately shaped by only one. Today, Iran is a nation of 88 million people. Its median age is 32, one of the youngest populations in the region. It has the highest rate of university education among women in the Middle East. Its cinema has won international awards. Its literature is read worldwide. Its people have for 3,000 years shown a stubborn, brilliant, infuriating, beautiful refusal to disappear. Every year on the first day of spring, Iranians around the world celebrate Nowruz, the Persian New Year. It is a holiday that predates Islam, predates Alexander, predates even the Achaemenid Empire. It is 3,000 years old, and it is still one of the most widely celebrated holidays on Earth. History loves to tell the story of civilizations through their moments of dominance, their wars, their conquests, their falls. But the real story of Iran is something quieter. It is the story of a people who have been conquered by Greeks and Arabs and Mongols and Turks, and who managed each time to reshape their conquerors. A people who gave the world the concept of human rights before most of the world had kings who could read, who lit the flame of algebra, medicine, and astronomy while much of the world sat in darkness, who wrote poetry so true, so human, so achingly beautiful that 800 years later it still makes strangers cry. Iran is not a perfect country, no country is, but it is an ancient one, a deep one, a civilization that has earned through blood and brilliance and sheer stubborn survival the right to be understood, not feared. And here is the question I want to leave you with. After 3,000 years of empire, conquest, renaissance, revolution, and survival, what does it mean when a civilization refuses to die? What does Iran know about endurance that the rest of the world is still trying to learn?